So you know the saying, there's power in numbers? Well, increasingly, the data dump of more information than you can possibly imagine about your own life is being sought out by people trying to quantify themselves. It may sound obsessive, maybe downright weird, but those who do it say the technology to track themselves is keeping their lives on track. Here's America Tonight's Michael Okwu.
Like most people, Paul Grana is trying to maintain balance in his life by staying fit, staying socially engaged, and of course keeping up with his daily emails. But there's one big difference between Paul and the majority of us. For the last 4 years, Grana has been meticulously recording, tracking, and creating numerical graphs that correlate with almost every act he performs, every moment, no matter how small, in his life.
What compelled you to start this in the first place?
I think curiosity.
So what did you do?
Started a tab in Excel and just for every day, just put in how many miles I ran, and if I went to the gym, how much work I did at the gym, and about a month or two later, I think pretty early on, I started tracking sleeping as well.
Grana's obsession with monitoring his life has since multiplied. There are now graphs that reflect the number of alcoholic drinks he's consumed, book pages he's read, his blood levels, his commute time, how much he meditates, how many hours he's exposed himself to the sun. The San Francisco resident is recently engaged, so there's even a category titled Courtney for fiancé-related entries. There he can survey the length of their relationship, their favorite restaurants, their intimacy.
This sounds like OCD, and if it's not OCD, then it's something approaching it, or different. A new strain, perhaps.
The difference between what I do in OCD is that I sound almost like an alcoholic, but it's that I control it. It doesn't control me. I want to sort of understand the cadence of my life and try to manage what that cadence is. And if I'm not sleeping enough, if I'm not being active enough, if I'm drinking too much, whatever it is, just like gently nudge myself back to whatever the range that I want to be in. I'm going to live my life one way or the other. The question is, how directed am I as I live that life?
According to a Pew report, 70% of American adults already track personal health indicators, their weight, diet, or exercise. Today, millions are doing it with technology. Research shows that by 2017, there will be over 170 million health and fitness smartphone apps or wearable devices in the marketplace, fueling what's expected by then to be a $20 billion industry.
This is the heart rate monitor, Garmin watch, which has GPS tracking, Fitbit that measures my steps.
Maria Bennett isn't your typical self-tracker. Most are young, male tech enthusiasts. But she says she's always been an early adopter of technology and something of a natural at recording data. Growing up, she documented her activities in a journal, the books she read, the places she traveled. What she couldn't have known then was how easily emerging technology would help her track and then resolve health issues after she turned 50.
About 10 years ago, I was maybe 45, 50 pounds heavier. My knees were just killing me. I could barely walk up the stairs. I was staring down at a road of medications and a host of illnesses that supposedly come with age. So I took my health very seriously in order to change my life. And it paid off. My cardiologist was just so impressed by my blood work, and he said, you know, if everybody did what I did, healthcare costs would be nowhere near what they are these days.
Bennett and Grana are part of a growing wave called the Quantified Self movement. People who've made a lifestyle out of tracking and recording their personal data, effectively attributing a number to almost every aspect of their lives, from those obvious things like fitness, health, and nutrition, to facets of our lives you wouldn't immediately regard as quantifiable: moods, habits, even love.
I spent more than 50% of my time simply surviving in this world. And so that is sleeping, eating, and some other stuff.
With hundreds of groups meeting across the nation and dozens more convening by the thousands at international conferences from Africa to Asia, Latin America to Eastern Europe, QSers, as they call themselves, are growing exponentially.
One is just the evolution of our technique.
Gary Wolfe is the founder of the Quantified Self movement. He coined the term a decade ago as an editor for the tech industry magazine Wired.
There's tens of millions of people today who are tracking something like where they're going, their metabolism, their medicine, their symptoms, their movements. There'll be hundreds of millions in a blink of an eye. And they'll be tracking a far bigger range of things than we can even imagine at this moment.
We stand on scales to get our weight. We balance our checkbooks. I mean, we've been tracking ourselves in a variety of ways for a long time. So what's changed?
I do think that what's going on in the world of the quantified self is based on some fundamental human practices and desires and needs to take stock of oneself, self-observation, with new tools.
Many of the tracking devices QSers use allow them to share their personal data with others. That sharing can engender a sense of community and even support from like-minded strangers. But some say all this self-tracking can inhibit people from simply living in and enjoying the moment.
It outsources our memory or our awareness, because if we have the gadgets to record the moments for us, the pictures, the numbers, we are apt to pay less attention to the world.
You have to start to wonder whether this obsession with seeking data becomes so strong, is it actually interfering with the way that people would like to go about living their day-to-day lives?
Clayton Critcher, psychologist and professor of marketing at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business, has been studying the movement.
If we start to track ourselves, we feel like we get a sense of order and control for our own health, our own psychological outcomes. And as a result, I think that makes us feel more confident going through what is an inherently uncertain world.
Critcher believes QSers risk making what he calls false correlations.
The more variables you measure, the more that you will see correlations between those variables just by chance. Another concern is that just because two variables are related doesn't mean one causes the other.
Well, you compared over to yoga. You looked at yoga.
I compared yoga attendance and correlated it to productivity, found a 0.18 correlation.
Gary Wolfe is well aware of the criticisms, but says the long-term benefits of an increasing number of engaged self-trackers in the world far outweigh any problems.
The overall benefit of people having practice, taking measurements about themselves, will lead to overall better care even when they're interacting with experts.
Hunter Lee Soik, a self-avowed QSer, is taking the movement one step further. He is the founder of Shadow, a mobile application meant to help you remember and record your dreams.
I've always been blown away by the concept of dreaming and the idea that for 1/3 of our lives, our bodies are suspended and our unconscious minds are free from the limits of reality.
What I think you get from analyzing your dreams or analyzing anything is just kind of deeper understanding of yourself. And it's very different for different people. For me, I really can then look at this data, or I have an interesting thing to talk about at a dinner party. Guys, I just want to say something quick. We have 8 PhDs on the team, everywhere from integrated sleep medicine to lucid dreaming experts. Without the kind of brains, we would just be another company that's just trying to, build a dream app. We want to be like a dashboard for quantified self. We want to hopefully plug them in so then you can see kind of in real time how's the data kind of affecting you on a subconscious level or on a conscious level.
But Wolfe insists the quantified self is not about the gadgets or the services offered and sold.
Quantified self is about the personal value and the personal meaning that you can get from your own data. When the focus is not just on finding answers, but on being able to ask your own questions, that's when you're dealing with the quantified self.
Just to give you a sense of how fast this is all evolving at this point, we spent considerable amount of time with people in the Quantified Self movement, and they tell us that these self-tracking wearable devices have become the new status symbols, if you will. For some people, on par, even greater than your car, your clothes, or accessories you wear, like your watch. So if you're wearing a Fitbit or a Nike Fuel Band, these are devices that track everything from your sleep to the number of steps you take in a given day or the calories you burn, that in some subtle but significant way you have arrived, because you're basically signaling to the rest of the public out there that you're engaged, that you are proactive, and essentially that you are goal-oriented, that you go about your business in the world with a healthy dose of self-consciousness, Joey.
All right, but Michael, you know, what you've told us is that these folks have a tendency to be guys and perhaps geeky. What else do we know as we look at the numbers on all this? What else do we know about these folks?
Well, that's right. I mean, you know, the initial adopters of this were, you know, men, tech-oriented, late 20s, early 30s, essentially people who describe themselves as type A personalities. They are very ambitious. They want to control the outcomes in all of their lives. What we're finding out now, and we spoke to a good number of them, is that the movement is attracting a broader swath of the general public. There are certainly more women in the movement now. In fact, there's a subcategory of quantified self called QSXX that addresses women's needs specifically. But also, we talk to people who would never narrowly define themselves as type A personalities. People who say essentially, look, I recognize that I had an issue or problem in my life, and it made sense to me that given this community of like-minded people and the technology out there that might be accessible to me, those two things might help me resolve whatever my issues are. So perfectly ordinary people now are now taking up this movement.
Yeah, but Michael, I have to tell you, I considered actually getting a device of this kind, and then I thought, I don't really want to know that much about myself. So I wonder, you know, is this really a trend that is going to be confined to California, Silicon Valley, where this thing started? Or is this something that could actually have a widespread impact?
Well, it's already, as I mentioned in the piece, having a wider impact. There are conferences that are going on all around the world. So slowly and surely, even though ground zero of this movement was in Silicon Valley, we're finding that there are large amounts of diverse people around the world who are now tapped into this. When you spend time with quantified self folks, they believe that they are really captured part of the zeitgeist here, you know, the dominant school of thought, essentially, that influences our society at large. And what I'm talking about is they believe that right now there is this sense around the world, individually with people as well, that everyone wants to better themselves. If not become perfect, then at least be a better version of who you are. Now, look, I got to tell you, I just learned about a week ago how to actually operate my microwave. So I'm not a technically gifted person, and I'm going to sound a little bit like I'm drinking the lemonade here. But when you think about self-help, nutrition, health, you know, all these various aspects of our lives together make up a multi-billion-dollar industry. And then a movement that allows an individual to essentially tap into all of those various silos of our lives. It's hard not to imagine that at some point in the future, this is going to become the new normal. And the question is whether or not, as individuals, we're going to have multiple devices or whether we're going to have one device or so. The question is when it's going to happen. Is it going to be 10 years or 15 or 30 years from now?
We will see if it all adds up, right? Okay, America
That's
Tonight's
right.
Michael Oku. Thanks.